Hi, everybody. Can y'all hear me? Hi, y'all. Can y'all see me? Y'all can hear me? Oh, okay. I know it's dark in here, y'all. Oh, let's see if I can. Not pushing no buttons. Okay. Genetically, you can't fuck with me.
For his way, it would be Jacinta Numpajupa Price.
Hmm. Do anybody even come in and watch?
Trinidad apologized to you because we all was drinking, even you, with the baby and stuff.
Hmm.
Your SNAP benefits. I'm back.
Hmm. That's some big old juicy shrimps. Okode kasegu orera wasta.
Boy, it's good YouTube his show, boy. Coming back again, another video, man.
We smoke every day on the average 9, 10, 11, 12, even 13 blows. Mm-mm-mm. We ain't got no more weed. It's time to re-up. You got to hurry up. We are looking for the weed man, the weed man, the weed man. 'Cause we just wanna smoke. We just wanna smoke. We just wanna smoke. Ooh, 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 ooh. get closer to the remake. What it say? Get paid to do what? I missed that. Damn, I wish I would have saved some more, saved the rest of the cake for tomorrow instead of eating it all. I mean, one good job
just got a
and
deep
making good
cleaning,
money.
and I are deep cleaning.
Yes, yes, they are. Because deep cleanings are so intense, and most people never talk about it. That's right, there is different types of cleanings. Now, you guys are probably like, oh, cleanings are great. They're not that bad at all. I go to my cleaning and it's awesome. That's because you have healthy teeth. You see, what happens is your teeth sit in the bone, and there's a gum that sits around it. And in there is a tiny little pocket, a collar, almost a turtleneck of gum around your tooth. Now, while this is healthy, that's actually what your hygienists are probing for. That little thing in your gum and they're measuring. That's what they're measuring is how deep your pocket is. Now, if it's a normal amount, just a couple millimeters, they can clean just fine with a normal instrument and everything is good. But if you leave gunk, food, nastiness, and inflammation there, your bone doesn't like that. And so your bone will drop down, and then the gum tissue will deepen, and then that pocket will deepen. And it gets to a point where you physically can't floss and clean it, even though to get it, you probably are a terrible cleaner at the first place. So it ends up just becoming a cycle that gets worse and worse because it gets deeper, you can't clean it as good, so it gets deeper, you can't even clean it even more, so it gets deeper. And then eventually you have to go into what's called a deep cleaning, or even sometimes a scaling and root point. And what that is a very, very deep cleaning where they have to get way down up in there and they have to rip up against the tooth root, which if you don't know, the enamel is very fine. There's a lot of protection here. You don't have a lot of sensitivity. But my people that have a little bit of root showing, you guys know how excruciatingly painful and sensitive your roots are. They literally will scream in pain just even from some cold water being on your root structure. And that's because the holes are way bigger than your enamel holes. And so the connection into the nerve of your tooth is almost instant. So imagine somebody going and scraping like nails on a chalkboard against a tooth root. Oh my God. And so what they do is they have to numb up your entire face. They have to literally give you anesthesia the same way you would get a root canal or a crown or something like that. And then they go to town cleaning it all up. So is it painful? Yes, it's not fun at all. And that's why I highly recommend people clean your teeth, take care of them, do what you're supposed to do, and avoid that bone loss, avoid that gum loss, avoid the periodontal disease, and then you'll never have to get a deep cleaning in your life. Okay, hope that helps.
I just got a deep cleaning, and I are deep cleaning.
Yes, yes, they are.
Yes, yes, they are. Make sure they put yellow on this one too. Wow. Why was I falling asleep or something? Hmm. It says I'm live now. Hmm. I'll be trying not to fall asleep on my lives.
Challenges are our greatest opportunities.
Don't tell me I'm falling asleep in it too. That's probably why it's got yellow in that video. Mm-mm. Oh shit. Mm-mm. Oh, that's not good. I gotta stop doing that one. Not got any viewers? No. Been on 13 minutes. Ain't nobody come in yet. Mm. shit. Rumble.
I'm like, how can I get out of this situation alive? That's a effing hand. That ain't no paw, that's a hand. Just tell me what drug you gave my father that cost me a father when I was a kid. I'm leaving. I, I don't even know where the hell I'm running, but I'm running. I'm going to take you from your kids like you took my dad from me. This is a...
Let's Monopoly go! Chris! Kiki!
This is a monster. So that thing did in fact kill him. She just took a long time doing it. Okay. Just this calm voice in my head said, okay, I'm looking at a werewolf. My name is Roy Stubblefield. There may be some viewers that know who I am by hearing my encounter or seeing me on TV. These woods are haunted. I'm going to say this real quick. If you really want to hear what happened to me where they didn't change the words that I said, listen to this episode, or you can listen to me on Dogman Encounters where I first shared my encounter, because I've talked to a few people that have been on that show, and they said that they changed parts of their encounters. We don't need anything changed about what happened to us. When you omit some information, it could possibly cost somebody their life. If they do react in the wrong way, if they encounter one of these things, it could cost somebody their life. So, I thank everybody for their kind words that I've read in the comment section, and all the people that have reached out to me on Messenger, because evidently my episode is everybody hears it and says that's their favorite one. And okay, I don't know how to say positively that thank you because my terror brought you such great entertainment. But if you like it, that's good. If it saves a life, excellent. Not trying to be famous, definitely not trying to do that. I just had something happen to me years ago that it opened up and closed some portals in my mind, if you will, as to going when you go along the thoughts of monsters don't exist. They're just in books and Hollywood movies. But I'm telling you, you're never going to see a werewolf, dogman, Bigfoot in your life because they're not real. Let me say this emphatically. Wrong, wrong, wrong. These things exist. And should you be unfortunate enough to see one, your life is going to change. When I had my encounter, or after I had my encounter, and I got all these years to think about stuff, I think within the first 7 days, I got kind of pissed off. Now, the reason I was pissed off is because ever since I was little, my parents tell me there's no monster in the closet. There's nothing up under your bed. No, there's nothing waiting around the side of the house when you go to take the trash out. And yet, I'm standing a few feet away from a monster. So I'm like, why would my parents lie to me? Why would they not prepare me for what the frick is out there in the world? And I had to come to grips with it because they didn't know. It wasn't done maliciously. It was just to tell you this to keep you from being afraid of the dark. And my father was right. The dark can't hurt you. The dark can't hurt you. What lurks in the dark is what can tear your rooter from your tutor. That's what can hurt you, whether you trip on a stone or fall in a hole because you can't see in the dark. The dark ain't gonna hurt you. It's what lurks in the dark that can get you. So, having said that, my encounter happened in Metairie, Louisiana. Well, it started in New Orleans, I guess.
Well, Metairie is part of New Orleans.
I was living with my cousins and my aunt. And my aunt was of the age at that time where she didn't like to be called auntie or aunt. She just wanted to be called by her first name. Okay, I can do that. I lived with them for a couple of years, graduated from high school, and she came home one day and said, we're going to have a family meeting. Normally when this happens, that means somebody didn't do something where they didn't wash the dishes, cut the grass, shovel snow, you know, whatever 3 teenage boys were supposed to do, clean the basement, whatever. So I'm looking at my cousins like, what didn't y'all do? And they look at me like, no, what didn't you do? And I'm like, well, I guess we're going to find out in a minute. So she went in the room and changed clothes and she came out. And we always have these meetings at the dining room table. So we sit down and she sit down and she didn't give us a bunch of fluff or anything. She said, in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be moving to New Orleans. And I'm going to leave the house to y'all. Y'all just got to pay the rent and pay utilities. I'm sitting here looking at her, and one of my cousins started kicking me up under the table. Now, we have such a connection that we know what certain movements or facial expressions mean. And I kind of looked over at him, and he got that look on his face like, oh, yeah. And I'm sitting, I'm listening to her, and she said, and don't tear up the house. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to get the security deposit back. Okay, we got this. She gets up, and me and my cousin looking at each other like, it's about to be on and crack. She going to leave us the house. 3 teenage boys with no parental guidance. Oh, this about to be the spot this summer. It's about to be on. She went in the kitchen, and she called me in the kitchen. And I'm like, damn, she forgot something. Okay, all right. So I go in there, she said, well, I'm going to need you to help me drive down to New Orleans. And I'll put you on a Continental Trailways on Friday and send you back to Nebraska. I'm like, okay, all right, I can do that. Also at this time, I was going through my first serious breakup of a relationship I had. And it caused me a few issues because it was the first one I had been through. I actually thought I was going to be with this girl for a while. And when I found out the reason that she wanted to break up, I'm like, okay, well, you know what? Life goes on. But it would do me good to get out of town for a while. Now I could focus my mind on something else and see, you know, a new city. And so I told her, yeah, I can do that. So Sunday morning, we got up and started loading the U-Haul and got that all loaded up. And we left out, I believe it was Monday evening or Tuesday morning. No, it was Tuesday. No, it was Monday. I'm sorry, it was Monday. So after a 35-hour trip, we pull up into New Orleans. We wore out, and she was like, let's just take the beds out. We're going here and go to sleep and just start unloading the truck in the morning. And we did. And I have to give that woman credit to be 5'1". The stuff that we had to haul to the second level is just me and her. She was strong because she had Duncan fight stuff, and that stuff is extremely heavy. I mean, and I'm asking her, you okay? She's like, I got this, just come on. I'm like, all right, I don't ever want to fight you. You know, I wasn't scared of her, but I'm like, you got to come up with a different plan because, you know, she's strong. But we got all that done, and we sat down and we was talking, and he said, well, I'm going to take you around and show you a few tourist attractions. I'm like, okay. So that night we went to Popeye's Fried Chicken, and I never had Popeye's before. They didn't have that in Nebraska. We drove around and looked at a couple places, and then we went back home. And he took me to City Park, which is a huge park. Got a Lake Pontchartrain on one side of it. I'm like, oh, it looked like a good fishing spot.
Ain't nobody coming on. Okay.
And she took me somewhere else. I can't remember. I don't have my journal in front of me, but she took me to another spot. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. Well, Thursday night before I'm supposed to leave, she takes me down in the French Quarters. Now, I had never heard of the French Quarters. I don't know anything about Mardi Gras or nothing like that. So we walking around and I see people walking up and down the street drinking alcohol.
That's what they do in New Orleans.
There's police there too. They're not stopping nobody. They're not giving nobody a problem. They just walking along, I guess, looking for somebody that's being out of control. And my mind is kind of like, wait a minute. You can't walk down the street in Omaha drinking alcohol. That's the fast foul note to get locked up. You're going to the drunk tank for tonight. Or you're going to get a ticket. And I see these people, and you got these street vendors on the corner, and they selling these drinks. They come in a 32-ounce cup. You can get a hurricane, a tropical storm, or a typhoon. And I got one, and let's just say by the time I got to the bottom of the cup, I'm glad I wasn't dry. I put it like that. They were strong. So I'm like, and you got all of these nightclubs down there playing whatever genre of music you choose, blues, jazz, rock and roll, R&B. I'm like, wow, I don't want to go back to Omaha. I can come and do this every day. I don't want to go back to Omaha. So I turned and looked at her and I said, well, can I stay? I don't want to go back to Omaha. She, stopped and looked at me like, wait a minute, you're supposed to leave tomorrow. I'm like, I want to stay. He said, so just seeing the French Quarters make it? Yes, I want to stay. He's like, well, you're supposed to be going to school this fall. They got colleges here. Can I go to school down here? He said, well, yeah. He's like, well, you know how to get a job? I'm like, I can do that. Can I stay? Just give me the place to stay for a few months till I get me a job and I'll move out and get my own spot. They're like, all right, if that's what you want to do. I'm like, yes. So it took me approximately 8 days to get a job. She helped me fill out my paperwork for my grants and stuff to get into college. And I got the job, and it's at a place called Chess King. Now, I don't believe they're no longer in existence, but for those of you that remember Chess King, it's a clothing store. If you wanted to look like your favorite rock and roll artist, R&B, whatever, you go to Chess King. You want to look like Michael Jackson, you go to Chess King. You want to dress like, not look like, but dress like. You want to dress like the lead singer from Flock of Seagulls, Duran Duran, you come to Chess King. We had it all. And this particular store, it was mainly for men, but we had a small women's section. And I've said this before, having the women come to the store, yeah, that's a great thing, wink, wink. You get to see all different types of females, but I'm going to add just a little something. I'm not changing anything, but I'm adding this. A lot of guys that work in selling clothes, they don't work in there just because they want to try on women's shoes or nothing like that. You want to see these females. I don't care if you're married, divorced, if you're Al Bundy and sell shoes. You're working in that store because you want to see women. Now, I'm single.
Al Bundy.
I've been broke up for a little bit more than a month. I'm ready to pick up where I left off. So our store had a bell above the door. And they still have these in some stores today, not the big department store, but some of these little mom and pop shops or antique shops where you got that little bell. So when you come in the store, it'll ring and let you know you got a customer. Unfortunately, it rings when they leave too. So it goes both ways. Well, I was actually changing out or rotating some stock. I'm about to put a new shipment out. And I heard the bell go off. Now, I worked with my manager. I don't know if that was by design or if that's the only shift she had available, but it wasn't a problem because she was pretty chill and she was helping 2 other customers. I hear the bell go off and I turned and looked at the door, and in walks this female. And I stood there and I looked at her for a hot second, and I said, welcome to Chess King. Can I help you? She's like, well, just let me look around if I need you. I'll either come and get you or I'll let you go. I'm like, okay. Now, I'm looking at her. And Josh, when I say she had everything that Uncle John needed, she had everything. I mean, from the head to her toe, she was put together real good. She was very pretty. Skin tone she was gorgeous. She really was. And I'm at work, so I gotta stay professional. So I just went back to putting up clothes, but I noticed that I kept looking over there at her. I'm like, come on, tell me you want some help. Come on, tell me, like that to myself. But I still gotta do my job. So I happened to be looking over at her. She kind of did that little come here motion. I'm like, okay, here we go. So I walked up. I'm like, how can I help you? She's like, do you have these shirts in any other colors? And it was actually some ones that I had just got them putting out, but we had 5 different colors, but I hadn't put all the colors out. I put out 2. And I said, yeah, let me go in the back. And I looked at her and I'm like, you a medium, right? And she said, yeah. I'm like, okay. So I went in the back and I got the other 3 shirts and brought them out. And I think it was a purple, orange, and a red one. And she picked the orange and the purple one. She's like, I want these 2. I'm like, okay. What else, is there anything else I can help you with? And she said, no, I'm gonna go over here and look at the skirts and the slacks. Okay. All right. So I'm standing there looking at her walk away, and I went back to work and I started thinking, what can I say to her? What's one of my best pickup lines? What can I say that is gonna pique her interest? And after running some stuff through my head, I just got to the point where I'm like, you know what? Just go over there and talk to her. Don't worry about no picked up line. Just introduce yourself and say what's on your mind. Now, I gotta be careful still, because my boss is female. And even though it wasn't a really big thing back in the 80s, sexual harassment was still a real thing. So I gotta be real careful on what I say. And I just, walked over to her and I was talking to her and I said, hey, I'm new in town and basically it'd be great if you could show me around, but I'd like to take you out on a date. And she stopped what she was doing and she looked at me. And she looked me up and down and she kind of stood there to where it got to either she about to lay into you or she just was like, nah, I ain't interested. Now, I had been looking at her hands. I didn't see a ring. I didn't see a tan line. If she had a ring, she would have took it off. So, but that doesn't necessarily mean she wasn't married. Maybe she got married, didn't have a ring, or maybe she didn't have a husband. Maybe she just had a boyfriend or possibly a girlfriend. I didn't know. I'm just like, just shoot your shot and see what happens. So he said, yeah, I'll go out on a date with you. I'm like, yes. The door's open. Now let's just see if we can seal the deal. So we walked up to the counter together and I went around the other side and I run up her selections and I, grab a piece of paper and stuff and I'm like, so let me get that telephone number. Now the whole time I've been talking to her prior to this, she looked me dead in my eyes and never broke eye contact. And I noticed during one of our exchanges that I was looking in her eyes and her eyes were this like a hazel green color. But I've never seen eyes, but it's almost this like she had gold flecks in her pupil. And I was like, her iris, I'm sorry. And I'm looking like, damn, she got some pretty eyes. I've never seen no eyes like that before. That's, that's different. But there was something about her. I mean, you ever been somewhere and whether you shopping or driving down the street and you see somebody and you just get that feeling like there's something about this person. Sometimes it might be a negative vibe, but sometimes it might just be I can't put my finger on it, but there's something about her. Well, she had this aura about her that it called to me. For lack of a better expression, it just called to me that I'm like, I want to take her out on a date. Now, of course, he could have said no, and that would have been the end of that. And sometimes I wish she had said no. Please believe me on that. Sometimes I wish she had said no if I hadn't known what was going to happen. But I asked her for a phone number, and she broke eye contact, and she looked to the right and kind of looked down. And she said, well, I can't give you my phone number when she looked back at me. okay, it's not unheard of that people don't have phones back in the day. We didn't have cell phones or nothing. Sometimes a lot of people didn't have a house phone. They make their phone call from phone booth. I said, okay, well, let me get your address. She broke eye contact again and looked to her left. As she looked down, she's like, well, I can't give you my address either. And I stood there and looked at her, and I guess I had an expression on my face to where, okay, well, you got a boyfriend or a husband or a girlfriend. Why you agree to go out with you? I didn't say this, but the funny thing is she looked at me and said, no, I'm not married. No, I don't have no boyfriend. She didn't mention about having a girlfriend or not, but she said, I'm like, well, why you can't give me no information? She said, well, my mother won't let men or boys come out of the house. Now, she said, men or boys come by the house to court me. Now, I know what that means, based from what my grandmother and my grandfather told me, but that wasn't a term that young people use too much. But I listen when people talk to me. I do. And when she said that, I'm like, oh, okay. I said, well, if I can't call you to come out of the house, how am I supposed to go out on a date? He said, there's a park a couple of blocks from my house. Just meet me there at 7 o'clock. I'm like, okay. All right. So I had given her my telephone number and my address. And, let me know if you ain't going to make it or something like that. And I gave her a card for the store. I'm like, you can reach me here too. She put it in a bag and said, okay. I walked her to the door and I opened the door for her. And at that time of day, from the angle of the sun, it was coming into the windows in the front of the store. And when I opened the door and she turned to tell me bye, for a split second, the light knob had hit her eyes to where it's like she had a gold circle around her pupils. And I was like, that just blew my mind because I'm like, man, I ain't never seen eyes like that before. That stuck with me because like I said, since that day, I've never seen eyes like that. And it was different. And I was like, man, you got some fantastic eyes. Your eyes are gorgeous. She blushed a little bit. She's like, thank you. You said that earlier. I'm like, yeah, but I never seen eyes like that before. Never. So I told her it was a Wednesday when she came in, and we decided we was going to meet the Friday. And yes, being the man that I am, when she left the store and she was walking down the sidewalk, I did, take a couple of steps out and turn my head and watch her walk away, and I was hypnotized by the sway. I'm not going to lie, but I'm just being a man. So I go back in the store, and my boss has finished helping the customer she was with, and she was standing at the end of the counter. She looked at me, she said, you real smooth, you know that? And I kind of looked at her like, what do you mean? She's like, I listened to what she was saying. You real smooth. I'm like, but I didn't do anything special. I was just talking to her. And she said, that's what makes you smooth, because rather than you come up with a pickup line, you just decided to be yourself. I'm like, okay. I said, well, to myself, I'm like, if you ever heard some of the pickup lines I got that had better on the street or the bar, maybe you wouldn't be saying that, but thank you. She's like, okay, so you got a date Friday, huh? Yes, ma'am. She's like, okay, well, you're supposed to close Friday. And I'm like, well, we close at 9 o'clock. And I'm like, why didn't you tell me that, when I was making the date? She's like, oh, I'm going to let you go on your date. In town, I'm going to cover you. She said, but you owe me one. I said, well, as long as I owe you, you'll never be broke. And we talked a little bit, and I stood there and we was talking back and forth, and then it hit me, dumbass, you didn't ask her where the park was at. What? No. So I'm like, oh man. So she had said the name of the park, and she said it was in Metairie. And my boss said, don't worry about it, I know where the park is. I'm like, you do? She said, yeah. I'm like, all right. So she actually drew me a map with turn-by-turn directions to get to the park. I'm like, okay, you up for Boss of the Year award. You up for Boss of the Year award. Yeah. So Thursday come, I'm in a great mood. I was walking around humming, smiling. And Friday comes, and I purchased an outfit in the store that I was going to wear on a date. I just changed in the storeroom. Now, I had bought a car while I was purchasing the car that I got that Monday. It was a 1978 Monte Carlo. It was copper with a half-white Lansdale top. I loved that car. I mean, I got a lot of compliments on it because I always kept my car clean or tried to. It just rained so much in Louisiana. You pretty much got to get out there with a towel to wipe the water off when it rains in order to keep you, looking bad for water drops. But I love that car. It had the velour interior on the seats, and I'm like, this is my baby. This is my baby. So I got the directions from my boss. I changed my clothes, and I come out, and I think I left a little bit after 6, maybe. I know it wasn't quite 6:10 when I left, because I got a 23-mile drive in front of me. So I'm driving through the park, and when you get to Carrollton and Tulane, you can go over this overpass, and it turns into Airline Highway, and then it's a straight shot up to Metairie. And it wasn't well developed then. It was mostly, you look to the right, you see trees with Spanish moss and stuff hanging off of them. You look to the left, it's the same thing. And it was a highway, a smaller highway. So I went up there, and my boss just said, if you go past Winn-Dixie, which is a grocery chain there, you went too far, you have to come up, turn around, come back. Well, I seen Winn-Dixie, so I was able to make a turn to get to the park.
What the heck is a loyalty program? Let's say you go to a coffee shop and buy a macchiato with the app. Delicious! You receive points that can be redeemed for free drinks and food. Did you know there's a similar program for gamers? Play to earn with Cash Giraffe.
I pull up at the park, get out of the car, and this park is not huge. It had a few pieces of playground equipment and a basketball court with a tin roof over it. This park, the size of it, if you get 100 people in there, it's going to be packed. You'll still be able to maneuver in there, but it's going to be a lot of people in the park. It just wasn't a real big park. Now, this is in a neighborhood. There's houses right across the street. When the park ends, there were 3 other houses on the end of that, and then there was a street, that runs, and then you make a left or a right to go further into the neighborhood. It's only about, I'm going to say that park, maybe a half a block from Airline Highway, because you could, see cars going up and down when they went by the intersection. But I walked in the park, I checked my watch to 6:56, and there's people playing basketball, there's people in there with their kids playing on the swings and stuff, and it's got these three rows of bleacher seats, and there's some people sitting over there, and there was a group of guys, there was 6 guys sitting not too far from me. They were far enough away where I couldn't hear what they were saying clearly, but I sat down on the end of the bench, and I'm just sitting there and I'm watching these guys play basketball. So I check my watch again. I'm like, okay, 7 o'clock, and I'm looking around to see if maybe he's coming down the street or from the back of the park. I'm looking to see if I see her, and I don't see her. And I'm like, okay, maybe she's running late. So there's one guy gets up from the group of 6 guys, and he walks over to me. He said, hey, man, how you doing? Like, I'm doing all right. How you doing? They're like, we speak in street slang, but he's like, how you doing? I'm like, I'm doing all right. He's like, hey, you want to play basketball with? And I looked down at what I had on, because I had on sandals, some dress shorts, and I got on a button-up shirt. I'm not dressed to play basketball, especially since I don't have on tennis shoes. And I look down at what I got on, I look back up at him, I'm like, I'm not here to play basketball, man. He's like, oh yeah, I'm like, I'm waiting on somebody. He said, oh, who are you waiting on? Now, I've been like this my whole life, and I'm still like that. If a total stranger walks up to me and asks me, what you doing? Why? Am I bother you, and I was at your business what I'm doing. I'm just doing what I'm doing. And I didn't pop off at him like that. I just, told him I'm waiting on somebody. When she get here and you see her, if you know her, then you know who I'm waiting on. He's like, oh, all right. He's like, well, my name is Herman. I said, what's up, Herman? My name is Stubbs. And we kind of adapt up, did a little handshake we used to do back in the days. And he said, and I always laugh about this, but he said, you're not from here. He said, well, I can't recognize your accent. Now, I'm from Nebraska, okay? And I have been told I got a country accent. I don't hear it, but he said, I don't recognize your accent. I understand. I'm in Louisiana. Their accent is very thick, and sometimes it sounds like you got a mouthful of chewing tobacco and you kind of talk around it without dribbling on your chin. So I'm busting out laughing, and he's looking at me like, what? I'm like, dude, I'm from Nebraska. You from Louisiana. You got the nerve to stand there and tell me I got an accent? You are hilarious. He did, he wasn't offended or anything, but he's like, he started talking about the football team we have, the Nebraska Cornhuskers. He's like, yeah, y'all be roughing up everybody, don't you? I'm like, well, we got a pretty good college team, but that's all we got. That's why everybody follow. He's like, yeah, you got that guy wear that big cowboy hat. I like, yeah, so we just, having small talk, and one of the other guys comes over. He introduced himself. He said his name was Diamond. Now you want to play basketball? I'm not here to play basketball, dude. I'm waiting on somebody. Oh, yeah, who's that? I said, when she get here and you see her, if you know her, then you know who I'm waiting on. Now, all of these guys asked me that, but they introduced themselves. So I found out a little bit later on that they've been knowing each other since kindergarten, first grade. They basically grew up together, went to school, so they knew each other. And I also found out that Herman wasn't his government name, if you will. Nobody gave me their name that's on their birth certificate. They just gave me street name. I'm like, okay, that'll work. Cool. I gave you Stubbs because that's my street name. I'm not going to tell you my name was Roy. I got to figure out who you are and what you're about. Now, I didn't get a feeling that they were trying to set me up or anything like that. It just seemed like some young dude that was out in the park on a Friday night, and rather than be out causing mayhem and mischief, they were just chilling at the park and getting a lot of trouble just playing basketball at the park. That's all you're doing. So they sat down and we was talking, and they was asking me, about Nebraska. One of the things they said was like, we didn't think it was no black people in Nebraska. That's supposed to be nothing but cornfields. I said, well, there's only 5 left since I moved down here, so there's really not a lot of black people in Nebraska. But I was just joking with them. So they went to go play basketball. I looked at my watch again, 7:15 done come and gone. It's coming up on 7:30, and I'm like, damn, she's running late. When is she gonna get here?
She probably wasn't gonna show up at all.
7:30 come and go. 7:45 come and go. About 7:50, I got that feeling in my stomach. And I said, I done drove all the freaking way out here, and her ass didn't show up. What in the hell is really going on? So I said, well, it's still early enough. Let me go. Find me something else to do. I just go get me something to eat, and I'll go down in the French quarters. Find out what I can get into. So I got to leave about probably 7:55, 7:50, between 7:55 and 8 o'clock. And Herman was like, so you got stood up, huh, Stubb? I said, yep, looks that way, man. He's like, well, since you're here, you might as well stay and play basketball with us. And I stood there for a minute, and I was looking at it because I've been fishing since I was 12. So I always keep a change of clothes and some tennis shoes in the trunk of my car, along with a small tackle box and a fishing pole, because I never knew where I was going to be, and I run across a body of water. It's like, I need to find out what kind of fish is swimming in there. So I said, you know what? I'm going to stay. So I went to the bathroom, and changed clothes and came back out. Now, I played basketball with these dudes off and on for the next 4 hours. There's a lot of basketball courts throughout Louisiana, at least in New Orleans, that some of them have them, but the majority of them do. They got these tin roofs over them because it rains so much in Louisiana, and it does very seldom sprinkles. It just be a downpour that you could still stay in the park and play basketball, even if it's raining, unless the wind is blowing water under the cover area onto the court. So This particular park, Monday through Thursday, the lights stay on till 10 o'clock. And Fridays and Saturdays, they stay on till midnight. And then Sunday, they don't turn them on at all. I was asking the fellas about that. And that's why I know it was midnight, because all the lights just went off. And we was almost done with the game, so we just called it and tried to decide what else well, they would decide what they was going to do. I was, drinking that hot faucet water. I wanted a cold beer. So I asked them, where's the closest liquor store? I want a cold beer. And I think it was Herman. It might have been a little bit. But somebody said, well, we putting our change together now, man. We about to walk up to the liquor store. Why don't you come and go with us? I said, okay. Again, I ain't got no feeling that they're going to do nothing to me. Of course, I could have been wrong, but at this particular time, I'm 5'11". I weigh 225 pounds. I can bench 300 pounds, and I can squat 500. I'm trying to get my body ready for the NFL because that's where I wanted to play football. I want to be able to make it in the league, and I'm not afraid of any man, woman, or child. Pat a little bit, but not seriously. I knew, you're a female, you're not gonna be able to get with me. Not that I ever would have fought her, but I'm not afraid of any physical confrontation with anybody because my brother taught me how to fight, and he always told me if you fight a bigger opponent, just think of it chopping down a tree. He explained to me what he meant, but I'm like, okay, so I don't go out looking for trouble, but I'm confident. I'm not arrogant. I'm confident in my ability. I made a decision when the guy said that. That changed my life. About my car, I'm not going to lie, I was vague. Shortly before I came to Louisiana, I had bought a gun from a guy off the street. It was a .357 Magnum. So I bought it for $100, and he told me, no, everybody been murdered with this gun, and they've been used committing no robberies. Ain't nobody there been pistol with it, but I bought it from a guy on the street. Now he could have been getting rid of it because he had used it to kill somebody or any other means, but it wasn't registered. It was in the trunk of the car. Now I could have put these 6 sweaty dudes in my vehicle, and we could have drove to the liquor store. Easy night, but I'm like, I'm not about to put these 6 sweaty, slightly fragrant guys in my vehicle, not in my baby. No, that's going to be a whole weekend for me to detail my car because, you sweat on velour, suede. It's going to get hard and not discolored. No, you're not getting in there, it ain't happening. So I said, okay, well, I got $5 since y'all putting change together. Y'all just add to that. And we'll get what we can. Maybe we'll be able to get a case of beer, maybe we'll be able to get a 12-pack, because this is 1981. So the lights is out, but you do have light coming into the park, excuse me, a little bit from the street lights. So got the change, and they started walking, and I'm walking with them. So we go down the street, and I'm thinking, maybe we're going to walk up to Winn-Dixie. But I said liquor store, I didn't say grocery store. And I didn't even know if Winn-Dixie was still open at that time or not. But anyway, we start walking down the street toward Airline Highway till we get to these railroad tracks. Now, they turned and started walking down the railroad tracks behind these buildings. And when I was coming up to the park, there's a junkyard on the corner, a tire shop, and a lumber yard. But they're spaced far enough apart that right directly almost in the center behind these buildings, each one of these buildings, there's a street light. And you can walk under one light, and before you get to the second light, there's an area of gloom. It's not pitch black, but it's gloomy back there where I would be able to see your silhouette. But unless you was 5 feet or closer to me, I'm not going to be able to tell what your facial features are. I could just see an outline of it. So on the right-hand side is this field of thistles. And if you don't know what a thistle is, it's a plant that starts out like a dandelion, and then it grows 5, 6 feet tall in Nebraska anyway. But in Louisiana, the ones I've seen was like 7 or 8 feet because of how much it rains. And when they get maybe about 3 feet tall, they got these thorns. I call them hypodermic needles, but they got these thorns on the leaves. And they'll give you a good stick. So I got this big field of thistles. I'm sorry, when they get fully matured, they get a purple flower on the top of them, one single flower. And it's about 150 yards. But I didn't know till later, as you go further down the tracks, it actually comes down to maybe about 50 yards in width. But they ran all the way down the tracks past that third building. But it's dark over there. I mean, it's really dark in the thistles and stuff, man. And I'm walking around, I'm looking, and we walking and crunching on these rocks. And because we're on railroad tracks, all 7 of us couldn't walk side by side to go down the track. So it's 3 in the front, 2 in the middle, and then me and Herman is bringing up the rear. And the other fellows was talking, but I couldn't make out what they were saying, because like I said, we crunching on these rocks. Well, Herman asked me a question, and he's like, hey man, how do you know when a baby is hungry? I said, when they newborns, you usually gotta feed them every 2.5 hours. How much do you give them? Between 2 and 4 ounces. Oh, okay. Well, do you know how to change diapers? Now, I got nieces and nephews. Yeah, I know how to change diapers. He's like, is it hard? I'm like, no, you just peel the tabs off and stick them to the diaper and it's a wrap. He's like, oh, okay. I was like, now if they poop or something, you got to take some wet wipes or washcloth and clean them up and stuff. But changing diapers is easy, man. And I kind of looked at him like, what, to myself, what is this about? So then he said, well, how do you know when they're sick? I was like, they either have a fever or they cry all the time, or, they'll let you know if you can't figure something out. I said, why are you asking me all these questions about kids, man? He said, oh, well, my girlfriend is about to have our first baby. He said, man, he's like, I'm scared to death. I said, the damage is done already. What you scared now for? And he was like, because I don't want to be the type of father that my father was. I'm like, well, what kind of father did you have? Non-existent. I said, oh, sorry to hear that, man. I said, well, if you don't want to be the type of father your father wasn't, then don't. You got the choice right now. You know that your father wasn't around, make sure you're around. You got this girl pregnant. Just if y'all broke up shortly after the baby's born, you still need to be in your child's life. You don't have to be with the mother, you have to be a father. He's like, no, it ain't nothing like that, man. He's like, I don't know nothing about babies. I'm like, talk to your mom, talk to your grandmother. If they can give you the answers, go to the library and pick up a book. Parenting, I said, is not that hard. Now, I'm not no expert by that time by any means, and even now I'm a grandfather. I'm still not an expert, but I have a lot more knowledge and experience. So he was worried. He was worried, but he was putting undue stress on himself, because being a new father, if you don't have a little brother, a little sister, or nieces or nephews, then yeah, you got to kind of wing it, but just always ask questions. And I was telling him this stuff, and we walking around, and I'm looking around, and I happen to turn my head because he was on the right side, and I turned my head and I looked to the right, but I wasn't looking at him. I was looking in the thistles, and he's like, "What's the matter? Did you see something?" I'm like, "No, man, it's just dark back here, and now we're directly under the first light now." And I'm just looking around because it's dark back here, man. I ain't never been, this is a new part of town for me. I ain't never been here. He's like, wow, I thought you might have seen something. He said, well, there's a big black dog that lives in that junkyard. And every now and again, he'll get out. And when he come running at you, just pick up some rocks and start hollering and throwing at him, and he probably gonna bark and growl, but usually he'll run off. I'm like, oh, that's nice to know you telling me now. So we talking a little bit more, and we walking. He asked me a couple more questions, and we're exiting out from underneath the first light, about to enter the area of gloom. And I was looking to my left. I was looking at this fence that they got that's running behind all of these buildings. It's that tall chain link fence with the 3 strands of barbed wire on top. And I was just, I'm just taking in my surroundings. And I made a mental note of that. I don't know why. I just made a mental note of that. And there's a smell that's all over Louisiana, at least in New Orleans and Mary. And it's like rotting vegetation with something else, like just kind of like a dirty smell. But you smell it wherever you go. And I think it's because it stays so humid and stuff with all the rain. You got a lot of vegetation growing, but you got some vegetation that's dying too. So it gives off a smell. And even down in the French Quarters, you can smell it. So I didn't smell any odor that I hadn't become accustomed to. But as we walking along, we're in the gloom, and we crunch down to the tracks. The other dudes is walking ahead of us. And we were spaced out maybe 3 or 4 feet. I had looked to my left, and I looked back to my right, and I think I was about to ask Herman something, maybe how much further we got to go and get to the liquor store again. I'm not feeling like they set me up for anything. So the other 5 guys, excuse me, really wasn't paying attention to me. They were just talking. So I was turning my head to the right, and I seen something in my peripheral come out of the thistle. I didn't clearly see what it was at that time. I just seen something black come out of the thistles up onto the tracks. It jumped. Now, with everything that I've been through in my life, and me not having no fear, no human being, something told me to run. And I used to run a 4 or 240. So when I get ready to get out of town, I'm on my way, lickety split. And I started running. And I couldn't have took more than 4 to 6 steps. And I heard this sound. That sounds like when you either trip and fall on some rocks. Well, I guess in that case, because I didn't know what was going to happen next, somebody tripped and fall on the railroad tracks and they hit the rocks and slide just a little bit. And Herman screamed, "Don't leave me." Now, I've never heard a human being, the way he said it, I've never heard that come out of a human being's mouth before. Never. There's something in there just, I guess it tugged at my heartstrings, because he screamed it. "Don't leave me." Now, I don't know if this is a black people thing or if it's any race thing, but if you run up behind some black folks, because that's my experience, so I'm gonna speak on them, they not looking back to see what you're running from. They just start running too. We'll figure out what you're running from later, but you running, so evidently something must be out. So the other 5 guys still caught running. When Herman said that, I'm thinking it's that dog from the junkyard that came out of these thistles, and it's getting ready to maul Herman. I don't hear no growling or snarling or nothing like that. He's not screaming. So I slid to a stop, and I bent down, and as I did, and picked up 2 handfuls of these white rocks. And I turn around and I run back with my right hand cocked, and I got my